Live from Los Angeles. Welcome back to Good Morning LaLa, and it's an incredible honor to welcome Jessie Johnson to the show. She has got a very unique lens on spirituality and finances.
So nice to meet you.
So nice to meet you. It's so great to be here.
So break that down for me. I mean, what is this lens that you're looking through?
So first and foremost, that spirituality and money are a place that we can meet, that there's no conflict of interest between those two. Which for me personally was a revolutionary idea, and for my spiritual community it wasn't even like a revolutionary idea. It was just like it was behind the couch, like the dust bunnies that we hadn't looked. Nobody was talking about money. It just was sort of a taboo topic, like sex.
Yeah.
So when I started looking at it as becoming an entrepreneur and starting my own business, it was like, oh, I gotta really think about this. I just didn't have to before. I was a New York City public school math teacher, so that was taken care of. And when I started to work with the energy of money in that way, bringing my spiritual practice to the table, it was so clear that they were in support of one another.
Did you have like a crossroads moment where you decided, you know what, these two need to meet?
Yeah, like January 2016.
January 2016, that's very specific. That's a good story, Jessie.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
I had started I was very, very beginning of my business and had started to work with clients. I was focused on working with retreat leaders because those were the spiritual teachers that would help me. I could help them with the educational component and integrate education and spirituality. That was kind of my entry point. And then what I realized is that they didn't have any skill set around running a business. They didn't understand money. They didn't want to talk about money. And they didn't know how to sell. Mm-hmm. So we were working on curriculum for these amazing transformational retreats that no one would come to.
Right, it's so true. Working in a lot of spiritual centers and being around a lot of spiritual community, I found the same. I mean, it's all over the board, but it's like, well, if we're really going to practice these distinctions, knowing the universe is abundant, what's up, you guys? And I do think it's important. It's important to communicate with money and whatever. So what is the practice? If someone comes to you, you work primarily with retreat leaders, coaches, and spiritual leaders, right? So tell me, if I come to you and I'm not, how would you work with me?
I mean, the first question that I have is, what is your vision for your life? If we take the ceiling off and anything is possible, that the universe provides, then what is it that you want to create? And oftentimes the people that come to me anyway, they don't have a financial piece to that. So I listen to them talk about what the vision is, and then I help them figure out what the financial component of that vision.
Well, don't you think, though, that surrounding the financial component is a layer of shame, is a layer of fear, guilt, insecurity? How do you remove that? Even from the people who have done their work and who are very spiritual and who are leaders in that, they still struggle sometimes.
Absolutely. It's part of why I like working with the people that I work with, because they already have a skill set in self-reflection and self-awareness. They just have a blind spot, a piece that they haven't applied their skill set to. So I think about it almost like this is a mental model, but I actually think it might be true too. Maybe you can tell me that we have a skill set developed on one hemisphere of the brain, and we want to connect it to the other hemisphere. It just requires a small neural link. It's not like we have to start from scratch, but that little bridge has to be there in order to connect the dots. And so I actually use that image with them, and that helps them it's like, you are already masterful at so much. You're already masterful at visioning, at creating, at supporting, at helping, at being of service. This is just one little piece. And as that piece comes in, everything then is positioned to up level much, much faster.
Right. Go ahead.
It's beautiful. No, it's you're like the human binaural beats of the money mindset, right?
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to me because I think you sort of identified the exact issue or problem, which is, how can I, as let's say a coach or a therapist or a healer, make it okay to make money? And it's so much confusion around that because I think so many folks feel like they're in a helping profession and they just want to be in a space where they're able to give. And so how do you, begin to turn that around? Because I think, at least for me, part of the lesson was, I can only give what I have, right? So you said part of it is you help them drop the shame and the guilt and you help them sort of connect both hemispheres of the brain. But how do you get them to that place? Like, what other tools do you help? Is it you work them through a business model, or how does that work?
In terms of, I want to make sure I'm answering your question.
Yeah, so for instance, what tools would you suggest that people use? Yeah. Anything specific that you work through?
Again, just talking about money is radical. so many people they didn't do it with their families. They've never done it with their partners or their colleagues. They've never asked for a raise, whatever. So just bringing that in, people are way, it's very simple arithmetic. The kind of work that I do, it doesn't take a lot of mathematical skill set. You don't need a math teacher to teach you how to do it, although I can do that. It's simpler than you think. I think that's why I got confused by your question, because it's like, what?
Simply talking about it's cathartic. Yeah.
And then like actually making it concrete. Okay, so how much money do you want to make this month? How much money do you want to make this year? What's the smallest amount that would make you absolutely thrilled? You would feel so good about yourself.
Well, it's kind of like what we were just talking about in the last segment. I think that we're here to upgrade our DNA. And part of that is some people come in and they master materialism, they master money, some people are here to master other parts, and we want it all. And yeah, but we may not be able to have it all, right? So how do you feel like, because I feel like a lot of the spiritual people, actually, they need to get a reality check. They need to go, you know what, if I don't master this at some level, I'm gonna have major issues. There's gonna be problems I can't fulfill upon just even my basic survival needs or whatever. And like I find people in the spiritual realm, they'll be like, they're trying to manifest money coming out, like go and actually work and do it. You know what I mean? It's like we get too ethereal. So how do you bring, because spiritual healers and all these people, they need to be brought back down to reality in almost like getting at their like cause and effect if they don't wake up and don't do the work. So how do you do that?
Absolutely. So, I'm thinking about the clients that and this is actually connected to your community question too. The community that I have worked in for so long, the vision part is not the problem. They have vision to transform the whole planet. And so actually then looking at what's stopping them is a very helpful question, because they will find their way to money. And something else that came up in listening to your question is that the money piece, although it's like the brand that I have, it's what I talk about the most, it's actually in service to the spiritual practice. It's a means to an end. So the money piece, for spiritual people, by integrating money, looking at money, they open their consciousness. If they have a blind spot to that money piece, they're not actually practicing what they preach, if that makes sense. They're not integrated. They're not doing it everywhere. And so when they start to do it with money, then everything else shifts. So visionary budgeting, articulating what they're going to spend the money on. They could spend it on everyone else. They could give it away every day, right? If they just want to give it all away, great. But to help them get connected to what they would be able to do if they had $1 million to donate to their favorite charity.
Visionary budgeting sounds much better than realistic budgeting. I will accept that challenge. Visionary budgeting.
So true.
Yep.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Tell people where they can find you.
JessieJohnsonCoaching.com. Jessie is Jesse.
Well, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your light and your insight with us. We will be back with more on Good Morning LaLa, and stay tuned.